There's a word in the Bible that echoes the same from Genesis to Revelation. That word is faith. We can feel inadequate. We can be overwhelmed by the idea of faith. We see great men in the Bible: Abraham, Moses, Noah, David. We see the disciples. We see the Apostle Paul. And we think, I could never be a man or a woman of faith like those guys. Listen, faith isn't always an action. Faith is rarely an action. Faith is submission. Think about it like this. Let's say you're driving down the interstate and you see a sign ahead that says, right lane closed ahead, 5 miles. So you start thinking about, I'm going to have to get into the left lane. I'm going to have to start planning my trip because that right lane's going to close. Then you see the sign a mile later, right lane closed, 4 miles ahead. You keep going, you go ahead and you get in the left lane. Most of the other traffic's starting to move over. 3 miles ahead, 2 miles ahead, 1 mile ahead, right lane closed. You've done your job. You've gotten in the left lane. Everybody in front of you and behind you has gotten in the left lane. You're ready for the merge ahead. All of a sudden, as the road cones start to appear and the right lane starts to shrink until it gradually is going to disappear, you look in your side view mirror and you see some yahoo speeding up behind you, and you know he's going to try to cut right in front of you. So, if you're like me, you get right behind the bumper of the car in front of you so he cannot get in. And you hope like crazy everybody else does the same. You know why? Because I've done my job. I've worked hard. I've done the right thing. I've followed all the rules. And I've got my plan ahead of me. And I don't want anybody to mess it up. And then at the last second, that yahoo slams his way somehow right in front of you. Does it make you angry? Listen, this is the point in the illustration where I'd like to say, you're the yahoo, stop being the guy who's trying to cram in the last second. Listen, God's the yahoo. God is the one who will cram into our lanes and cause us to move the other direction. God will come screeching into your life. If you ask him, he'll come screeching into your life and he'll blow all of your plans to bits. And when he does, faith isn't saying, God, I won't let you in. And faith isn't saying, I know the plan ahead of me. Faith is letting off the gas and letting God in front of you and following him where he wants to go. Listen, we in our lives, we say, God, I've done all the right things. I've done exactly what you wanted me to do, and I've got my life planned out just fine, thank you, for the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I've got a great plan ahead of me, so don't mess it up. But listen, God doesn't play that game. God is too big to fit in your lane, right? So God will come screeching into your life and he'll say, hey, you know what? New plan. And your job as a faithful follower of Christ is to yield, to submit to God's plan, to say, you know what? God's plan is better than my plan. So I'll let off the gas, I'll let God in front of me, and I'll follow where he wants to go. Faith isn't always an aggressive action for the world to see. Faith is submitting, yielding your life to God, and seeing where he would have you go. Abraham and Moses and Noah and David, they did the same. Noah didn't build an ark because he was an expert ark maker and he had made millions before. He built the ark because he submitted to God's will when God spoke to him. Moses didn't lead people through the wilderness because he was an expert in wilderness survival. Moses led people through the wilderness because he submitted to God's will and followed. David didn't lead because he was an expert king. He was a shepherd, but he yielded to God's will. Faith isn't aggressively pushing the gas. Faith is submitting and yielding and letting off the gas. Faith is following.